Hello and welcome to another Penthouse video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Penthouse Season 2 finale, my Olympian Theory, and my Season 3 predictions, some of them. As usual, this is a spoiler-filled video, so if you haven't seen the Penthouse K-drama, I would recommend watching that first before coming to this video. If this is the first of my videos that you're seeing, I do have other videos about Penthouse on my channel, including my original Olympian Theory video. I do recommend watching that. However, if you're just here for Season 3 predictions, then you can probably follow along just fine. My original Olympian Theory is where I associate each character in Penthouse to a Greek god. So if you haven't seen it, I do explain a little bit about some of the associations in this video. But I do recommend watching that video as well. Wow, a lot has happened in the last 3 episodes. I kind of knew that everything that I was thinking about the 2 previous episodes was just very soon to be inaccurate, and it did change a little bit of what I was thinking about the Olympian Theory. So I am glad that we have waited and I can talk about the finale and some of the things in episodes 11 and 12 as well. Before we get to the Olympian Theory, I do want to first start off with some general thoughts about these last 3 episodes. I am really glad that the characters have faced the consequences of their actions, for the most part. That court scene was really fun to watch, and I'm sure it was very fun to act in. It was crazy. It was honestly hilarious. And I can't wait to go back and watch it with English subtitles because I had to watch the finale, no English subtitles. I was struggling a bit, but it was still so fun to watch, even though I didn't get everything that was being said 100%. The episode was really good and I really enjoyed it. It was just the craziest thing that we've seen. I feel like just the epitome of just a silly, over-the-top K-drama, and for some reason, I usually don't like the over-the-top K-dramas, but Penthouse is for some reason just my favorite drama like that. Everything is just so crazy, so unrealistic, and there was a point in this season where I was sort of like over it, and I was annoyed at the situations that were happening, but I feel like with this episode, I feel somewhat satisfied, and I feel just as excited for Season 3 as I was for Season 2. I did talk about in one of my previous videos about how much I enjoyed Jenny and her mother's redemption arc. I really enjoyed the redemption arc, and I was really confused as to why they suddenly reversed it. I think that is just the one thing that I'm still questioning. I feel like they referenced that they just randomly changed it, but then it's still weird to me. I feel like it's just a major waste of time in a way. So I don't know if we'll continue that in the next season. Obviously, we've gotten a taste of them completely reversing the redemption arc, so I don't know what's happening there. There must be some sort of plan or some reason why they took that redemption arc back. We're just basically back to where we started. And as I may be quite satisfied with the finale episode, something feels very off, as I'm sure it does for you as well. One of our favorite characters was just blown to pieces, and it feels like the next season is going to be just as bad and just as terrifying as the first 2. Specifically, the old man who assisted in the demise of Logan Lee was literally Joo Dantae. So he really isn't suffering the consequences if he can freely walk out of jail. I do, however, suspect that Season 3 will end with his death, because to me, that's the only way we're ever going to see Joo Dantae fall. In the first season, I was really here for Logan Lee and Shimsurion's relationship, but in the second season, I was a little questioning it. I felt like it was a bit awkward. I felt like Logan Lee as a whole had a very different vibe in the second season that made me root for him, honestly, a little bit less. I do think it makes sense for him to have an actual death. I believe to some extent that he is actually dead because I think it makes sense to the story. However, if we continue with the rule that if there's no autopsy, there is no actual death, and there's a popular theory right now that he is actually going to get facial reconstruction surgery and be recast, I think it's definitely possible that he's still alive. Personally, I'm all for a new love interest for Shimsuryan, but I still love Logan, so I'd be okay with either, I guess. As Shimsuryan hangs up pictures of Hera in her penthouse and has a very satisfying purging of Joo Dantae's belongings, she takes a quick coffee break sponsored by Nespresso. I thought that this was one of the funniest product placements that I've ever seen because it just seemed so out of place. But then the lovely people on the K-drama subreddit alerted me to the fact that she was literally holding the coffee with her left hand. I don't know if this means we're going to get a whole nother switch or if Naegyo is still alive, actually. But it is really strange to me that the writers would point out that Shimsuryan only uses her right hand to hold things and then have her use her left hand. I still don't know if this proves anything, if this is a tease to the idea that Naegyo is actually the mastermind of everything and is actually alive and still pretending to be Shimsuryan. To me, because of Shimsuryan's attachment to Minsola still, that proves to me that the person that we're seeing is actually Shimsuryan. But then why would they make a point to talk about which hand she's holding and then switch it? So now that that's aside, as far as general predictions that I have, I think the few things that we can expect is a time jump and a very wild ride. We know that Joo Dantae can get out of prison, so I believe that in season 3 he will still be the main villain. I do wonder though, who is working for who? Is Joo Dantae working for Jenny's dad, or is it the other way around? I can't imagine that if I was sent to prison to take the fall for something, that I would help the person who sent me to prison while they're in prison. It just doesn't really make sense to me, but I'm sure that we'll get more answers as to what the relationship is in season 3. Provided that there is a time jump, I think that it's definitely possible for the kids to have a way bigger role than they have in these past 2 seasons. In season 2, they did have a slightly bigger role, but I think that because of the popularity of the twins, it's very possible that they're going to have a way bigger role. If there is a time jump, I expect that we would see the kids in college or out of college, depending on how far we jump in time. We've already seen a taste of their confrontation that exists beyond their sort of high school fueled animosity, if you can even call that horrific display of bullying high school fueled animosity. But they do have different sources of hatred for each other now that all of their parents are essentially in prison. And this is where the predictions lead to the Olympian Theory. Both Apollo and Artemis in Greek mythology have a ton of myths surrounding them. Apollo does have an important role in the Iliad, which is what I reference in my original theory. However, in the Iliad, he did support the Trojans, which in the original video I do associate with the morally unsound people of Hera Palace. I still think that this association is true for them in the first season, but I think we are definitely moving to a new chapter in the 3rd season. To me, the twins, Jusokun and Jusokyung, have the weakest connection to the Olympian Theory, beyond them being twins and having an obvious connection or inspiration by Artemis and Apollo. If in season 3 we see an increase in their involvement, which I think is definitely possible considering their intense popularity on the internet, there are a ton of myths to choose from. One famous myth surrounding Artemis is her association with Orion. There are many different versions of this myth, but a few include Orion being a lover of Artemis, and Apollo, who is trying to protect Artemis, tricks her into shooting and killing Orion. Another version has Artemis killing Orion for attempting to seduce her or one of her friends. There is another important version or other important versions that include Apollo, Artemis, or Gaia sending a scorpion to kill him, which is inspired by the placement of the Orion constellation and Scorpio. In fact, there's a lot of different myths surrounding the different constellations in relation to Orion. So if we're including Orion in the Penthouse theory, there's a lot of things we could go with even in there. But let's think about how we can translate this myth to a K-drama-like event. I think there's a possibility for a love interest for Seokyoung in season 3. Or if not a love interest, she could either be pursued by someone unwantingly or possibly even stalked. I think that if we go with one of the myths mentioned, there is either a love interest or a stalker of Seokyoung and Seokhoon steps in to help her. This could show up in many forms, but this is just one of my ideas that could happen in season 3. Apollo is another god that has so many myths attached to him. One story I was reading was dealing with his association with Hercules. I know I've said this many times before, but I do really hope for a Hercules-like situation in Penthouse. I think at this point it definitely makes sense considering Shimsuryan, who is represented as Hera in my theory, has sort of been satisfied in some way by all of her revenge. We do potentially have another source of revenge for her, so there's a couple different possibilities there. But as far as Hercules goes, I think that this would be a very interesting plot to address. Basically, Hera sends Hercules to do 12 labors, and eventually she makes him go mad and kill his family, and then eventually adopts him. That's a very edited version of what happens, but that's essentially some of the bigger things that happen. And Artemis and Apollo help him with one of his labors. For this reason, I believe that one way that this myth could manifest in Penthouse is that a secret love child of Joo Dantae could appear in season 3, and at first could be some sort of villain-like character, but then upon meeting Seokhoon and Seokyoung, they could eventually help this person, and Shimsuryan could eventually adopt this character, because at this point she's adopting everyone, so it's pretty possible that she could adopt another child. This is a very loose application of what the Hercules myth could entail in Penthouse, but I think that it's definitely a possibility. Another possible application of Hercules in Penthouse is that we could associate Hercules with Beirona. She has gone through many trials at the hands of Shimsuryan and others, and she is represented as being a generally emotionally strong character. I know that's kind of up for debate too, but for the intents of the argument, we'll say that she's quite a strong character. I do personally wish for another character for this plot to be unfolded, as I do think it's a really interesting thing that could be explored. But I do think that Beirona is a definite possibility to fit in here, as she has just been essentially adopted by Shimsuryan. So that was a lot of information, and there's so much more that we could talk about, but I am going to end the video here today. As we're starting with a relatively clean slate for season 3, there are so many more things that we could talk about that could be explored in season 3. I'm planning on rewatching some things in the season and make another video in the coming weeks on some more predictions and Olympian Theory things for season 3. So look out for that. If you liked today's video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I post, well, so far videos about Penthouse and other vlogs and things. I hope to post more videos like this for other K-dramas, as this is very fun for me. I know I say it in every video, but I have so much fun talking about these things. So also don't forget to like this video and comment down your thoughts below. Thank you again so much for watching today. I will see you in the next video.